and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Psalm 22 and 23. Now, Psalm 23, probably the most famous of all the Psalms, and millions of people have committed it to memory. You may be one of them. For the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. You know how it goes. Well, it's David in the twilight of his life, remembering his days as a shepherd, and he's using this analogy that God is like a good shepherd, and we are the sheep, and we are being comforted by him and led by him and fed by him. It's designed to comfort. It's used in funerals. It's used to comfort people. It's the most incredible of Psalms. Now, our friend Luke asked this question: you prepare a table before me, which is clear. It is speaking of God's provision, in the presence of my enemies. Why does he say, I'll set up a table? It's almost giving this picture of a battlefield. The soldiers are all around, and you would assume in battle, you just eat on the run. You like grab a hunk of bread while you're running off to the battle line. But he says, no, nothing's rushed. The table is laid. The enemy might be out, but the table is laid. I am secure when the Lord is my shepherd. I have my provision, and it's independent of anybody else. Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter what they do, doesn't matter how they come up against me. Anyway, great chapter, and trust you enjoy reflecting on it again today. But I'm going to go to Psalm 22 because this is a remarkable psalm. David was clearly in distress, and the first 20 verses talk about his distress. But then the second section of this chapter speaks about why he went through the distress. Now, I'm certain David was in this position, but unbeknown to him, by the power of the Holy Spirit, what he was doing was prophesying about Jesus. And so from the very first verse to the very end, it's about Jesus, about his suffering and why he came. And I'm going to read through some of this now and explain it to you. And I'm setting you a challenge. Do it yourself. Have a look at it and see where the imagery and where the verses are in the New Testament about Jesus. My God, it starts. Why have you forsaken me? Jesus picked these words as he was dying on the cross. He quoted Psalm 22. And then he says, why are you so far from me? Why are you not saving me? Jesus' work on the cross was complex. That God turned his face from him. That God allowed him to go there in the place of you and me, and God looks at the sin on him, and the fellowship of the Father and the Son was momentarily forsaken. It's a complex thing that happened on the cross. I'm going to go down to verse 6. It says, you looked after the ancients, David says, but I am a worm and not a man. He says, like I'm a squirming worm trodden on the ground. And these are the verses that follow. Scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me, hurl insults at me, shaking their heads. Now that should ring a bell. Should ring a bell. Matthew 27, those who walked past Jesus shook their heads, scorned him. Most amazing. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let him rescue him, deliver him. That's exactly what they said at Jesus before the cross. He saved everybody else. Let him save himself. Yet you brought me out of my mother's womb, and from young I trusted in you. Talking about his birth from Mary and his growing up. And then it says, and this is the question that Luke asks. He says, who are these bulls? Many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me. Well, what is that? Bashan was a place east of the Jordan. It was a place, if you read in Deuteronomy, where the giants lived. Giants lived there, and they taunted God's people, tried to intimidate them. And we see in Joshua 13 that Moses defeated them. But he's basically saying that those who mocked, who crept around the cross, the soldiers and the Pharisees, they were like instruments of Satan, like the bulls of Bashan, coming to intimidate God's people, God's anointed one. And then he says things like this: my mouth is dried up. Remember, Jesus took vinegar on on the sponge. They pierced my hands and my feet, exactly describing Jesus. My bones were on display. Another way of saying that is that my bones were dislocated, describing the way crucifixion happened. And David wouldn't even have known about crucifixion. They divided my clothes among them. They cast lots for my garments. Exactly what happened for Jesus. So the first half describes the agony of Jesus. Then the end of this verse, and I'm going to leave it up to you to look at it, describes why he went to the cross. And what we'll see here is that his name is declared. The poor get the good news. The nations hear about the gospel. People come to him. It's an incredible prophetic description of the work, the death, and the reason of Jesus' coming.